So far, it's just us.
I was gonna say,
Oh, here we go. It can take a little while to get people
sure.
coming on in. Your hair looks fine.
Thank you. Been pulling at it all day.
All right. Okay, great. So people are starting to join us, which is fantastic. We appreciate it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what you need to know right now about paying for college. So this evening is really geared towards students who are in the class of 2024 or younger. But even if your students graduating right now, class of 2023, there's still going to be information that can be helpful for you. My name is Jen Satellino. I'm with the College Place, Oregon, and we're really lucky to have John Valley from the Oregon State Treasurer's Office here. John, say something so that you'll pop up.
Oh, hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for taking some time out of your evening to learn a little bit more about some post-secondary education issues.
Issues makes it sound bad. We're trying to make this as easy as we
There
can
you
for
go.
everyone. Yeah.
This will be great.
All right. So as we get started, this is a webinar. So don't worry, you're already on mute. When you've got questions, you can use the Q&A box, which should be located at the bottom of your screen. I'll monitor that for John while he's chatting. He'll monitor it for me. We'll make sure that we get your questions answered tonight. And you've also got the option to turn on or turn off closed captioning. We'll have a quick poll. So just any types of questions that you have tonight, we want to be sure that when you leave, you've got your questions answered. So, okay, let me do this. We're going to do a quick Zoom poll just to give us a sense of who is here with us tonight. So just two really, really quick questions. We'd like to know where in Oregon you are from and what year your student will graduate from high school. And Northeast and Eastern Oregon, there were so many counties, I don't think I was able to include them all. So sorry for that. And hopefully I didn't spell anybody wrong. All right. Keep this open just a little bit longer. Make sure everybody can get their say in. John, it looks like we're really popular in 2 areas of Oregon and the rest have never heard of us. But that's okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share it with you all. And it looks like this is great. We have high school sophomores here tonight, which is the perfect time to be here. And it makes me just tickled that you're here. We've got Southern Oregon and the metro area represented. So, you know, I was worried about Eastern Oregon and trying to fit all those counties on there. I didn't have to worry about that. So again, this is going to help. John and I can now kind of really tailor what we talk about and make sure that we're making a lot of sense for our sophomore families. That's just such a great thing to know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just dive right in. I want to be sure to leave plenty of time for John. He's going to discuss Oregon's 529 plan, the Oregon College Savings Plan. And because you have a few years before college starts, it's the perfect time to talk about that. So I'll go through kind of the preliminaries for you. I can ever, there we go. So I always like to start with college costs. And the reason I like to start with that is because sometimes, well, not sometimes, we often get sticker shock when we find out how much college costs. And because there are some outliers out there, and those are the ones that are picked up in the media. And so if I'm just listening to the radio in my car and like keeping an eye on the news, the messaging that I hear, and I know better, having done this for over 30 years, is that, you know, college costs more than $80,000 a year. And that's not true except for about 2 colleges. So we're going to really quick, I kind of want to debunk that myth. So instead of everybody costing, you know, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, I want to give you kind of a gut check. Here in Oregon, and I've broken this down for a reason, the average tuition and fees for one of our community colleges for a full-time student going to school for 9 months is about, it's shy of $6,000. If you ask the financial aid office, however, how much it costs a student to go to their school full-time for 9 months, they'll tell you closer to 24,000, and we'll explain that in a sec. So already we know there's a little bit of a disconnect between what we're thinking and what colleges are telling us. Our public colleges and universities, and I should say our public four-year universities here in Oregon, average tuition and fees about $12,683 and just shy of $30,000 total all in. And then our private colleges and universities, I think we still have a handful of colleges left. Everybody seems to be going from being a college to being a university. But our tuition and fees are, about $38,000, probably about 55 all in. And these are figures as of last year. I've got the little citation down there. Now, when I say all in, what does that mean? And so this gets a little bit technical, but every college or university that uses federal or state financial aid programs to help their students afford the cost of college, they're required to have something called a cost of attendance. And it is defined by the federal government, the US Department of Education, what is in that cost. So while as a current parent of a current college student, when I think of how much college costs, I think of tuition and fees, the check I'm writing to the college or university. And then I'm thinking mostly of room and board, like how I'm supporting my daughter as she's going through her third year in college. But in order to award federal and state financial aid, colleges have to have a budget which includes tuition and fees, food and housing, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. So that's kind of where that little disconnect starts. We're thinking of two different things. So I think just personally what my personal budget is, whereas the financial aid office has to think about everything. So even when my middle daughter went to a community college, there was still a piece in that budget for room and board, even though she was living at home. So again, that's why sometimes these costs seem really, really high to us, and we're not really sure where they've come from. All right, so especially because you're sophomore parents, I'm so happy to have you here. You can do something called a net price calculator. Now, every college and university that uses federal financial aid is required to have a net price calculator on their website. You can just open their website, click the little search bar, type net price calculator, it will pop up. What these do, they will ask you some key questions as a family. How much was your income in 2020 or 2021? How many people are in your household? What do you have in certain asset classes? Usually like cash savings and checking, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, business or farm equity. So we'll ask those questions. The calculators kind of churn through that information, and they'll come back and they'll say, John, if you had been a first-year student at the College of Gen last year, based on what you told me, this is what your financial aid offer probably would have looked like. And it gives you a really good idea. And so you've got plenty of time to kind of play with those. Sometimes people don't want to spend the time to type in all of that data over and over and over again, especially if as sophomores, your students haven't narrowed their college list down yet, which we don't expect them to. So instead of going institution by institution and website by website, you can go to this collegecosts.ed.gov. This is a site from the US Department of Education. And what they do is they collect all of the financial aid data from colleges and universities. They'll report in income bands. So they might say, hey, if you've got an family income between $0 and $30,000, this is what your average financial aid would look like. And then they'll go from 30 to 50. They're consistent bands across everybody. And so that might be a little bit of an easier way to do it, especially since, again, we're early in the high school career. You won't actually know what your net price is as a family until you've applied for financial aid, been admitted to a college and actually received that financial aid offer. But this gives us a good idea, it gives us something to hold on to think about, and to start planning with. All right, and John, I'm going to stop. Any questions on costs or net price calculators?
I don't see any in the Q&A or in the chat.
Okay, good. Then I'll move on. And I will say again, because your students are younger high school students, we're going to go over a lot of stuff tonight. And sometimes it's really easy to get overwhelmed. Just ride with it. We'll have a recording of this webinar available to you, and you'll hear this information again and again as your student gets older. And then I know both John and I will be available to you if you've got specific questions even after tonight. All right, we're going to talk about financial aid applications. And there are a couple of different ones that you might need to know about. We're going to be really high level. Once you get to that senior year, I could bore you for hours about the intricacies of each application. But for now, I'm just going to let you know that here in Oregon, you'll hear about at least 2 and possibly 3 financial aid applications. The 2 that you will for sure hear about are the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, and the Oregon Student Aid Application, or the ORSA. You will do one or the other. You don't do both. And we'll kind of cover which one that you will do in the next few slides. I don't have a slide for the CSS profile, but I will tell you that that is a possible financial aid application. That depends on which colleges and universities your student will be applying to. Usually the profile is required by schools that have a significant amount of their own financial aid. So they'll use the information on the profile in addition to the information that they receive from the FAFSA or the ORSA to make decisions about giving out their own funds. Here in Oregon, right now, the only college using the profile is Reed College. This form tends to be used primarily on the East Coast. Here on the West Coast, we're pretty straightforward people. We know what we like, we've got the information we need. So if you find that you need to do a CSS profile, I work for the College Place. We're a nonprofit. Everything I do is free of charge. I will sit down with you, either in a coffee shop or on Zoom. We'll do it together. So if you've heard bad things about that, don't let that stop you from allowing your student to pursue a particular college or university. Now, the FAFSA form, again, the free application for federal student aid, this is a form that's used by about 90% of the students in Oregon. So students who are US citizens, students who are US nationals, students who are among the compact or the treaty states, the Marshalls, Palau, and the Confederated States of Micronesia, students who have been granted asylee or refugee status, and students who have what we used to call a green card. Now it's got some horrible name, like, I can't even, it's something like an alien identification card or something like that. But those students will complete the FAFSA regardless of their parent status. So FAFSA is used by citizens and specific groups of eligible non-citizens. Right now, this is what the FAFSA form looks like. It'll look a little bit different each year. And so next year, it'll look a little different. Traditionally, the FAFSA opens on October 1st each year. And so if your student's a sophomore, it will open on October 1st of 2025. That can't be right. 2024, sorry, for the 2025-26 school year. So sophomore parents, you're great. Any junior parents have snuck in since we did our poll, discovered we had a bumper crop of sophomores. One time, this is a one-time thing. This fall, the FAFSA will be delayed. Instead of opening on October 1st, it will open at some point in the month of December. We don't yet have a date. And this is because they're making some changes to the FAFSA, the questions that they ask, the methodology that they use. But more importantly, they're bringing FAFSA into the modern age and onto a better computer language. It's been programmed using an old language that, was taught in the 80s when I was in college and was on its way out at that point. So just this fall, FAFSA will be in December, and then we'll go right back to that October 1st opening. You don't have to do this right on October 1st, but I'd really like you to get it done in the month of October if you can. The earlier you get the FAFSA done, the easier the rest of the senior year is. Now, one of the interesting things about the FAFSA, again, it's from the US Department of Education, so I can make fun of a federal bureaucracy just a little bit. With every website, we have a username and a password. FAFSA has a username and a password, but we call it an FSA ID because it gets you access to things in addition to the FAFSA. So, but the Federal Student Aid Identification, or FSA ID, students, you will create one of these. Parents, you will create one of these as well. It's unique to every person. So you'll want to use your personal email, not your school email, not your work email, but like your fun email. And then you'll set up usually two-step verification. So once you get this, it can serve as your electronic signature. So it's really important that you make one and that you keep it really, really secure. So I just kind of like to set that up. We'll start nagging you to create an FSA ID, usually the last part of the junior year and the first part of the senior year. Parents, if you have students who are already in college and you've already gone through that FAFSA process, that FSA ID is assigned to you, not to the older siblings. So keep an eye on where your FSA ID is. You're going to use it again and again. All right. Now for 10% of our students, they can't complete the FAFSA. This includes students who are dreamers, who are undocumented, who have DACA status. And because we've had such a long time since DACA has been open, I have students who now refer to themselves as undocumented instead of undocumented. These students can't receive federal financial aid. But here in Oregon, we really believe that all Oregonians deserve to have the opportunity to complete their education after high school. So the state of Oregon's developed a special application for those students who can't complete the FAFSA. And that's what this ORSA is. It's the Oregon Student Aid Application. It replaces the FAFSA for Oregonians who cannot file the FAFSA. It usually opens on October 1st. It'll probably be in December this year. And that's because the ORSA asks all of the same questions that the FAFSA asks, and it uses the same methodology as the FAFSA. So whatever FAFSA does, then ORSA follows. Not quite as flashy as the FAFSA page, but it's a really, really good tool. You'll have a username and a password, both for students and for parents, but we don't call it anything fancy. It's just a username and a password. So, all right, before we move on, John, any questions?
Still don't see any in the chat or in the Q&A.
Okay, that either means we're doing a really good job or people are bored and have tuned out. So hopefully it's the first. All right, I'm going to quickly go through the financial aid programs just at a really high level, just so that you know what's available. Again, once we get closer to the senior year, we spend a lot of time talking about this. But now we're just going to kind of go through on a really high level. And financial aid is defined as any time someone other than a family member gives you money to go to college. So that's just the blanket definition of financial aid. Financial aid comes in a couple of different types or flavors. The first two, grants and scholarships, are what we consider gift aid. And gift aid is the type that we want to maximize as students, as parents, as folks who help students and parents, because when you receive a grant or a scholarship, this is money that doesn't need to pay back. There's no string attached to it. I guess the string is you have to attend college that term or semester. But once you're there, that's it. That's all you have to do. Work study and student loans are considered self-help aid. And what that means is that the funds are available to you, but there is a string. So with work study, that string is that you have to work. Usually it's going to be on campus and maybe 5 to 8 hours a week. And then student loans, you have to pay them back. So those are the four types. They come, can I even say they come in different flavors? Maybe I'm just hungry right now. But we can offer grants, scholarships, loans, and work study on a need-based basis, which means that once you've submitted your FAFSA or your ORSA, and we've run through the numbers, it looks like you need help paying for college for your student. And so we have specific grants, scholarships, loans, and work studies set aside to help families who need the money. Now, there are also merit-based scholarships and grants, but merit-based is usually a scholarship. It's when, we're giving you funding, but there's like something about you. It could be that I'm going to look at John and I don't know, maybe I'm going to say somebody who wears glasses, or, who wants to major in political science, or who plays sports, has a great GPA. But there are as many different ways to measure merit as there are scholarship donors. So don't think that if you don't have a perfect 4.0 and you're not athletic, that there will be no scholarships for you. We will help you find them. So, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. So 4 different types, 2 different flavors. Now to run through these, grants come from the federal government through the U.S. Department of Education. They come from the state government through the Office of Student Access and Completion. And then you'll also receive grant offers from individual colleges and universities as well. So you might be in a situation where you're looking at a financial aid offer, and you've got a federal Pell Grant, you've got an Oregon Opportunity Grant, and you've got a Valley College grant. So you can get grants from multiple sources at the same time. Work study comes usually from the federal government, but it's never enough. And so colleges and universities supplement it with their own funds. So when you receive a financial aid award, it might say work study, but it won't say federal work study, or I used to work at Linfield, it would say Linfield work study. We would just, when we were originally doing the financial aid packages, we would just write work study, and then we'd sort it out later which fund it was coming from. I'm a big fan of work study. Again, it's not enough to pay your rent, but it's enough to help with those. Remember, we had personal expenses, maybe some transportation expenses. Usually at a four-year college, your first 2 years, you're going to be working on campus, something nice and convenient. And then once you get into your junior or senior year, so those last 3, 4, or 5 years of college, we're going to have you use your work study and find an internship off campus. And then you can use your work study funding to fund that. And so that's going to help you as a student, gain experience in a career field, build your network. You'll have something to put on your resume, whereas your friends and classmates who don't have work study will be at a little bit of a disadvantage there. And lastly, we have student loans. They are considered financial aid in the broad definition of financial aid because it's money coming from someone other than a family member. Again, we have several different types of student loans. We've got 2 that are geared towards students, and those are the subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. We've got some limits on that. A first-year student in college can borrow usually up to $5,500. And it's going to depend, there's like maybe 2% of students could borrow more if they've got extenuating circumstances. Parents can borrow through something called a PLUS loan. And the interest rates are variable. They change every year. And you can see that they're not horrible. They're not terrific, but they're not horrible. So it just sometimes a family will research and maybe find something or somewhere that they want to borrow instead of through the U.S. government loans. I'm a big fan of the federal loans, but we can always chat that through. And John, I see we have a question.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. I just didn't want to
good.
interrupt your flow. So the first one was, can you talk about the different grant scholarship levels for different income brackets?
Oh, I can. I can talk in generalities, and it's a little awkward right now because with those FAFSA changes that are coming and delaying the FAFSA and the ORSA until December, they're changing the methodology as well. What it will be, it will look at the number of people in the family, and it will look at the poverty level for that number of people in the family. So maybe 4 people in the family, We can look up what the federal poverty level is, and then we'll look at a percentage of that. So if a student, let me think of the best example here. I go right to independent students with kids because that's a really round number, easy to remember. But say we've got a family of 4, we've got both parents working, so they're married. So maybe 2 parents, 2 other people in the household. We would look, I believe it's going to be like 225% of the federal poverty level. So it's actually going to be more generous than it has been in the past. And if you've got questions, I will be happy to send you more information tomorrow. I've got it tucked in a spreadsheet deep in my computer because I don't have to worry about it until next fall. But so yes, we can look at family income levels and the number of people in the family and give you an estimate of whether or not you'll be eligible for a federal Pell Grant. The Oregon Opportunity Grant, it goes to the neediest of Oregonians. So that's usually people, if I had to put a percentage on it, maybe like the bottom 20% of family income here in the state. So, and then with the college and university grants, it's very dependent on the economic makeup of the students attending that college or university. Trying to think, it's USC is right down the street from one of the, it's the University of Southern California, which is private. It's down the street from one of the University of California campuses, and I can't remember which one. But USC serves much more affluent students than the University of California campus does. There's actually a really big difference between the 2 of them there. And so even though they might have a similar size student body, the way that grants are allocated in those 2 schools is very, very different. So, and I hope that kind of answered your question. I know I kind of said, oh, don't ask me for specifics, but you'll get my email and feel free to email me for specifics.
And then I have another question. Do both parents have to declare their income on FAFSA or only one? And what about divorced parents?
Okay, so when we are completing a FAFSA or an ORSA, we're going to look at the parent who provides the most financial support. So in a situation where parents aren't married to each other, they might be separated, they might be divorced, they might never have married. If they're not married and they don't live together, we're going to be looking at 2 different families, essentially. We're going to look at the parent that has provided the most financial support. That becomes the financial aid parent for FAFSA and ORSA. And the parent that's not providing as much financial support is ignored in this process. For FAFSA and ORSA, profile is a little bit different. So we're going to look at that parent who's providing the most support. It doesn't matter if that parent has claimed or will claim the student on the tax return. And it honestly doesn't matter if the parent is living with the student or not. We're just looking at support. If that parent is married, then we'll have 2 parents reporting on the FAFSA, the parent and the step parent. We're still going to ignore the other parent. So you could have 2 parents married to each other, 2 parents living together. You could have parents who are, unmarried, divorced, or separated. You'll figure out which parent provides the most support. It could be just that parent, or if that parent has remarried, it'll be parent and step parent. I feel like I should have finger puppets at this point and I explain it every year. Maybe I'll do that next year. All right, any others?
No, I think you got
Okay.
all those questions answered. So
good. All right, I'm going to give you some happy news about student loans. And I'm sure this is because we have such a fabulous 529 program here in Oregon. But we hear a lot, especially with all of the student loan information in the news lately. We hear a lot about student loan debt. Here in Oregon, I think the last year I have information for is the class of 2020. For students who graduated from a college in Oregon in 2020 with a 4-year degree, their average student loan debt was $26,504. This means that we're below average nationally, but this is like one place I want us to be below average. I want us to borrow as little as possible. So this is really, really different than like the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're hearing about on the news lately. So keep this in mind. So students borrow, and that's, before COVID, that was like the price of a nice car. I think post-COVID with all the supply chains, you couldn't get a nice car for that much. But so it's a pretty doable amount. Yeah, John, was there another question?
There was, and it's going back to the parent issue, I believe.
Okay, yeah,
How's how's the parent who has provided most financial support determined if it's not through prior year's taxes?
it's determined by the parents themselves. So the student and the parent and the other parent as a family, you're going to decide who is providing the most support, the most financial support. And keep in mind, it's not just dollars, it could be in kind. So, but if I'm sharing a child with Oprah Winfrey, even if that child is living with me, chances are Oprah's got a lot more money than I do. She's probably providing a lot more financial support than I am. So, but yeah, it's the family is the one who is making the decision there. All right.
Yeah,
Oh.
you're all good on questions.
Oh, good. Okay.
Please go.
Really quick, I'm going to talk about scholarships. I've got just 2 quick slides and then we're moving on to John, which I'm really, really excited about. Students can start looking for scholarships immediately. I have students that sign up with me and they receive a text or an email from me every month. And I always have a scholarship of the month. And it's always something that's kind of general that anybody could apply to. It's not specific. My favorite, it's due on October 31st. It's the Zombie Apocalypse Scholarship. And I send that one out in February, just in case you don't like Valentine's Day, but it's really not due until Halloween. But so start looking, look everywhere. And in fact, this is the time of year when high school seniors are starting to, we're getting notified that, oh, John won this scholarship. There was an article in the Oregonian today about a student at McDaniel winning a Chick Evans scholarship. So start paying attention and looking at those and writing them down. Ask for help. So students, this is one place parents can really help do the research. If you get stuck, check in with your college and career center, check in with your counselors. Parents, shoot me a quick email and I'll get on there and try to find some as well. I am a scholarship judge for a number of scholarships here in Oregon as well as nationally. And I want to tell you, please, 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 when you are submitting these applications, please proofread them. Please use capital letters. I just can't tell you how distracting that can be. Use punctuation. Make it as easy for me to fall in love with you as a scholarship applicant as you possibly can. So please be as accurate as you can and proofread. And then don't give up. Like, you're going to play a numbers game. The more scholarships you apply for, the more likely you will be to actually win a scholarship or two. But when you put a lot of effort into a couple of scholarship applications and you haven't won a scholarship, it can be a little bit disheartening. What I tell students is that it's a skill, it's muscle memory. Once you've done maybe 3 to 5 scholarship applications, everything after that becomes a lot easier. I will send you this list of scholarships in a follow-up email tomorrow. I just want to show you that there are a lot of different resources. You don't have to use each one. I love Big Future. It works with how my brain thinks. It's number 1 on the list because I put the list together. But I have colleagues and they love FastWeb, which I can't stand. It's just, there's too much going on. I get so distracted. So I put FastWeb further down on the list. But other thing on this slide I want to bring to your attention, the Oregon Career Information System is now free to everybody in Oregon through a grant from the Oregon Department of Education. So if you go online and you search Oregon CIS or Oregon Career Information System, you can get in and create an account. And they have 2 different scholarship search processes. One's, they call it financial aid sort and financial aid list. And so again, it's just how you process information will make the determination of which one you use. Oh, John, I promised that you're up and I lied. So when you're researching, I want you to, keep organized. You can download a PDF. I love this. Download a PDF of a spreadsheet, or you could create a spreadsheet yourself in Google Drive. So maybe both the student and the parent and favorite Auntie Scary here, Auntie Jen, can research scholarships and put them on there. And then you can sort them by due date or whatever, but just have a place that you keep them. All right. John's going to talk to us about saving for college. So I'm going to leave that to him. But some students find that they finance their education through service, and they can serve through AmeriCorps or through the U.S. Armed Forces. And you won't be paid a whole lot, but at the end, you will have an education benefit. I have a daughter right now in AmeriCorps. It's scary how little they are paid, but then at the end, she gets an education award that she can use to help either pay off student loans she has or to pay for future education. The other thing I want to highlight is the Western Undergraduate Exchange. Oregon and other Western states. I love this. All of the Western states and North and South Dakota. I'm not sure how they got in on this, but we'll take them. Certain public colleges and universities, not all of them, but many of them, participate in something called the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So if you're looking at Boise State University, University of California, Channel Islands, Washington State University, you can go onto this website, witchy.edu, and look up and see if that particular university participates. Once you know they participate, I want you to click a little bit deeper. For example, the University of Arizona is a participating institution, but they only have one major that qualifies, and that is mining engineering. So if you go to visit Arizona and you fall in love, unless you major in mining engineering, you're going to be paying out-of-state tuition. So you won't pay in-state tuition. You pay in-state plus a premium. But I have a daughter at Washington State's nursing program, and it's actually cheaper for me to send her there than it was to have her go to Oregon State, which doesn't have a nursing program. So this can be a really, really good deal. All right, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. I will be your Vanna White.
Okay.
And move your slides for you.
I was gonna say, you can do the slides for me too, I assume.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, as a parent of 2 teenagers, I always find your information very helpful and insightful and inspirational, and reminding me of things I need to do with my kids. So thank you for that wonderful overview and making it so accessible for us parents and students who might be on this as well. So with that going forward, I am John Valley with the Oregon College Savings Plan. It's a program that's implemented by the state treasury. So I'm a public employee. I tell people all the time, I'm kind of a walking, talking public service announcement. So it's really great to have you all here and hopefully learn a little bit about another tool in the toolbox. Jen went over some of the things from a financial aid perspective with student loans and scholarships and the FAFSA process, which is all very important. This is just another option for families to consider. And so as I go through the presentation, if anything is confusing or doesn't make sense, you can raise your hand, write it in the chat box. Jen will let me know. And hopefully we'll just make this a little less mysterious and something that's something you can understand that might be useful for you and your family. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and go on the next slide. I'm going
to answer a question really quick. But I feel bad it's a question for me, not for you.
Oh, that's okay. So, I was going to say, wow.
It's a good question because I talked about applying for scholarships now. There are some scholarships, yes, that you could apply for now, and then they will hold that scholarship for you until you are ready to matriculate into college. So a first-year high school student could win the Zombie Apocalypse Scholarship at the age of 14, and then we'll wait the 4 years until they are 18 and starting at wherever they are starting. Some scholarships are just specific to graduating high school seniors, but I will help find easy scholarships for younger students for you. All right, John, sorry.
Oh no, no apologies.
Please ask John some questions so he doesn't feel left out.
So Jen was talking about student debt earlier, and it can be very intimidating. And there's a lot of, national sort of policy discussions going around student debt. But what I want to focus on is an article I read a few years ago. And they were talking about the article and the author was doing a lot of research about the impact on student debt. And he identified really, and it's the last part of the quote that I like to emphasize, is that every dollar saved is a dollar less borrowed. And that's really why we have the Oregon College Savings Plan. We want people to take advantage of having compound interest work for you rather than against you. You'll hear me kind of reiterate that throughout the presentation. And I think that is something that hopefully you'll take away after this presentation, is that how can we invest and save so we can reduce, not necessarily eliminate, but reduce the amount of student debt our family may have to take on. So just keep that in mind as we move forward in my part of the presentation. And even though I work for Treasury, I do not have an economics background. I am not a CPA, nor was I ever trained to be one. My background is in politics and law. And when I worked for Treasury, it obviously was a natural fit. But when I started, one of the coolest things I saw was my executive director do a presentation similar to what I'm doing now. And he showed this slide. And it actually kind of had the light bulb go off in my head about what is the miracle of compound interest? Why did Einstein say this was a great thing? So this is how I now think about it, and hopefully this will resonate with you. So this is all hypothetical, but if you just had a baby and your goal was to have $20,000 for that child when they turn 18 to help pay for whatever post-secondary education expenses they may incur, how do you get to that $20,000 goal? Option A is, well, you start saving $50 a month every month for the next 18 years with a hypothetical 6% interest rate of return. So with that calculation, again, that's a hypothetical interest rate, but you'd be making $10,800 worth of contributions over those 18 years, with interest being earned a little over $8,600 to get to your $20,000 goal. $50 a month for 18 years. That's option A. Option B would be the child, you wait till they turn 18, you take out basically a $20,000 loan, again, with a hypothetical 6% interest rate. So not only will you have to pay back that principal of nearly $20,000, but you'd be making interest payments for the next 18 years of $154 a month. And that would be option B. So I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. I'm not going to do a poll, but hopefully most people would think option A is probably a better deal than option B. If anyone had a different answer, just try to reflect and think maybe $50 a month is better than $154 a month, but just something to keep in mind. So I share that just because sometimes I think it doesn't really make a difference. And I think it can make a difference. It's not going to pay for everything probably, but it can certainly make it a little more affordable. And that's why we have the Oregon College Savings Plan. You can go to the next slide, Jen. So how do I open an account? What do I need to know? How does it work? A couple different things. When you open up an Oregon College Savings Plan account, and if you ever hear the term 529, I think even Jen said it at the beginning, that's what the Oregon College Savings Plan is. The 529 is in reference to the Federal Revenue Code, where Congress authorized states to create these college savings plans. So if you hear the term 529, that's what the Oregon College Savings Plan is. And basically it requires the account owner to have to be 18 years old. You have to have a social security number or a taxpayer ID number. And that's not only true for the account owner, that's true for the beneficiary as well. So the beneficiary has to either have a social security number or a taxpayer ID number. It's $25 to open the account. Once it's opened, you can put as much money in the account as you want, as little as you want, as frequently or as infrequently as you want. There's no minimum balance. You don't have to contribute every month or every year. It's totally up to you. You won't get penalized or have a fee or anything for not contributing. It's important to remember that I think I mentioned that I have 2 kids. So I have one account for each one. I have one for my son, one for my daughter. Other people are able to contribute to the account. We actually have an e-gift feature. So we try to encourage other people, if a holiday comes up or a birthday and you don't need any more Lego toys cluttering up your hallway, this is a great gift idea, and you can email them through our e-gift feature. So it's very flexible in that way. And you can go to the next slide, Jen. And the cool thing is you can use it for a lot of different things. I know it has college in the title, but you're not limited to a 4-year school. A lot of people think it's just for 4-year schools. You can use it for a 2-year school. You can use it for a trade school. You can use it for schools in or outside of Oregon. We even have a new change to the program where if you want to be an apprentice, and as long as that apprentice program is registered with the Department of Labor, you can use it for that. The only real criteria is that the school or whatever academic institution or trade school you're going to go to is accredited, which means it's eligible for federal financial aid. Jen was talking about the FAFSA website before. If you're not sure if a school is eligible for federal financial aid, you can go to the FAFSA website, type in the school name, and they will let you know if they're accredited or eligible for federal financial aid. And the money in the account can be used for anything associated to go in with that institution. So typical things that you would think of are books, tuition, room and board, but it's not limited to that. Computers are considered an eligible expense. If you're going to send your son or daughter or whoever you want, by the way, and I'll get more detail into that, you can go to a culinary institute and you have to buy pots and pans and knives. They're required. Those are all eligible expenses. The other thing I like to remind people, sometimes I have a family who is about to send their child to school and they're going to go to the bookstore and they ask me, where do I turn in the receipts? We don't collect receipts. It's basically on the honor code. We expect people to use the money for what it's supposed to be used for. The only caveat to that is if you ever get audited, which is the Department of Revenue, a different state agency than Treasury, they may want to see those receipts. So you can hold on to them, but you don't need to submit them to us every time you're making a purchase to prove that that's what you were using the money for. And recently, Congress also changed the program where you can use it now for student loans because that has become such a big issue. It's up to $10,000 of a qualified education loan, and that is a one-time use. So it's up to $10,000. That's not annual, that's just total. So just know that that's capped at $10,000 that you can use it for that. I'm going to take a quick pause because I've gone through a few slides. I know I haven't seen any hands raised, but I just thought I'd check in to see if anything doesn't make sense or if I could clarify anything.
We have a question for you.
There you go.
You're going to love this one.
Oh,
How
great.
can we make pre-tax contributions?
Well, it's a really good question. I haven't gone to the other slide, but you're kind of stealing a little bit of my thunder. It's I don't know if it's the next slide or it could be down, but it's an after-tax program.
It's the next
So
slide.
it's something similar in the sense, if you have a Roth IRA or have you heard of a Roth IRA, it'll be the next slide, I think.
Oh,
Jen.
okay.
And we can go back to that. So it's an after-tax program. So you get your paycheck, you have your Social Security and everything taken out, and then you put the money into your own college savings plan account. So there is no pre-tax sort of benefit associated with this particular program. All the interest you're earning is tax-free as long as you do use it for a post-secondary education expense, and we just went through all of those. It's important to remember that there's no application fee. You just open the account. The only thing that's really deducted and that's sort of automatically taken out of your account are just the administrative fees. And that's why you see that sort of range to 0.2% to 0.65. It ranges based on which portfolios you choose to invest in. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So hopefully that answered the question about sort of an after-tax program versus pre-tax. If you go to the previous slide, the other big state tax benefit that we offer, it should be, sometimes this question will come up. What happens if I move to another state? What happens to my money here? Every state has their own sort of 529 program. And one of the common themes is that all the interest you're earning is tax-free. That's sort of like the base common denominator. Then every state has the ability to offer their own state tax incentive, which is unique to that state. So in Oregon, we have a 100% refundable state tax credit, which was passed in January, or it was effective January 1, 2020. The legislature wanted to make the tax benefit a little more equitable. It used to be a state tax deduction. The only problem with having a state tax deduction based on your contributions is that if you didn't itemize your taxes, you didn't really benefit from having a state tax deduction. With 100% tax credit, you're actually reducing your state income tax bill. So just to kind of highlight the differences, because it's means tested, if your joint income is $30,000 or less, in order to get that $300 contribution, you just put that money in and you're getting a dollar for dollar match. It's very straightforward. However, if your joint income on the high end is $250,000 or more, you'd have to make $6,000 worth of contributions in order to get that $300 tax credit. And you can see sort of that joint income bracket, all the ones in between. So it's a really great opportunity. I mentioned earlier how people can contribute to the account through our eGift feature. They'll be eligible for the state tax credit as well, as long as they're paying Oregon state income taxes. But it's a really nice way for other people not only to help out your loved one, but to maybe get a tax benefit as well. Any questions on the tax credit? Oh,
not yet. Not
okay.
yet. But I will say I love the eGift feature.
Great.
It's great.
Thank you. So I was saying earlier how we have 15 different investment options. When you open the account, you get to choose how that money is going to be invested. And it, like me, if you're not an economic person, it can be a little overwhelming. Like, oh my God, how do I choose what to do? You're not alone, so don't feel like that's an unusual feeling. We provide a little quiz on our website. It takes sort of a snapshot of whether or not you're more likely to be a more aggressive investor or a more conservative investor. So just keep that in mind. There's no one way or right way. Sometimes I'll get like, what should I do? I'm like, it's really a personal comfort level. You know, the market can go up and down. So there's not one right way to do it. I just want people to know that when they're doing their investment options. Jen, if you can go to the next slide. So one of the ones that's really, I think the most, it is the most popular, not only in Oregon, but every state that offers an age-based portfolio. So for any of you who are starting retirement or heard about saving for retirement, there's this target date model where you're like, okay, if you're going to think this is when you're going to retire, what do you need to do to save money until that target date? And usually the conventional wisdom is you have a much more aggressive investment strategy when you're in your 20s and 30s. But as you get closer to retirement age in your 60s, have it be a little more conservative so the money will be there when you're ready to retire. That's sort of like the conventional wisdom. The age-based portfolio is sort of based on that sort of philosophy in the sense that the program, the college savings plan, will automatically adjust your investment strategy based on when you're expecting your child to graduate from high school. So if you look at I know it's kind of hard to read, but basically the bottom numbers are the age of the child, and the top numbers are how aggressive is your investment strategy. Well, when you're 2-3 years old, your beneficiary, you have a much more aggressive investment strategy. But as they get closer to graduation, when they're 17, 18, much more conservative because you want that money to be there when they're probably more likely going to use it. So that's the age-based portfolio. Like I said, it's the most popular one in Oregon. Just at a personal disclosure, that's the one my wife and I use. It's sort of like on autopilot, and it's sort of the easiest choice for some people, not for everyone. The other thing I'd like to let people know is that when you looked at that previous slide, Jen, all those 15 different options, you can change your allocation. So you could put 50% in an age-based, 50% in a social choice. If you don't like your rate of return, you can change it twice within a calendar year. So there's some flexibility around the program. You're not just stuck with whatever your initial choices were. And again, you can choose how much of whatever contribution, what percentage you want to go to each portfolio, or you can put it all in one. It's totally up to you. You are the direct investor is the way to think about it. I'm going to take another pause. Yep.
Yes. Can you run through the using up to $10,000 to pay off a student loan again?
Yeah. So basically, the money in the account is earning interest, and traditionally, you're using it for everything associated with the expense of going to school, books, tuition, room and board. If you still have the account open after that beneficiary is done with school and you want to help them pay off their student loans, you can do that if you up to $10,000 to pay off the student loan. It can't go over that. So it's a kind of a new thing to the program because I think student debt has become such a prominent feature in our culture and life. So it's not going to pay very much of it, but you're able to pay a little bit of it. And you're supposed to use it after you finish off whatever potential expenses that they're already incurring while they're in a school or a vocational trade school. Does that help answer that?
I'm looking out. I don't see a follow-up, but I'm sure it'll
Okay.
pop up.
Okay. Well, you let me know.
I will.
So we've talked a lot about the financial benefits of having a college savings plan account, but there's also academic benefits, and I don't want to underestimate that importance that it can have on a child's future. There's been a lot of research done on child savings accounts, college savings plans. What does it mean if you start saving for a young person to help pay for whatever post-secondary dreams they might have? What does it do? I'm really going to concentrate on that second bullet point. Research was done at Washington University in St. Louis, and they found for low to moderate income families who had an account open for one of their children, if they had $500 saved or less for some type of college expenses, a child is 3 times more likely to go to college and 4.5 times more likely to graduate. And that's not $500 a year. That's like $500 total over 16, 15 years. What the research shows if you show a child that, hey, we care about what you're going to do after high school, and we think you can go to college, we want you to go to college. If that's what you want to do, we're going to help you, pay for that. We're going to do the best we can on the financial side of things. It really has a dramatic impact on the child's psyche about what they're envisioning for their future, what kind of goal setting they're doing, what kind of academic performance they're going to be able to do in order to go to a college. So I just want people to know, you don't need to have all this money in a college savings plan account, first of all, to pay for everything, because it probably won't, A. B, whatever financial benefit you can to offset those costs, you're not only doing that, but you're also changing the views of your child as a young person, how they might envision themselves moving forward. And that is a really profound thing. So I just want to emphasize that you can still have a huge impact, but just having a little bit of money in a college savings plan account. And I can go to the next slide. We were talking about scholarships. I hope Jen is familiar with this when she sends out her scholarship of the month. I actually have reviewed these applications, so I can totally confirm that punctuation and good writing structure does make a difference. You can tell the difference. So we just closed ours this March 1st for, I think it was our third year or second year. We've done our diversity and leadership scholarship. We partner with the Oregon Community Foundation. It's a really exciting thing for us. We're basically, diversity is a pretty broad word, and the way we interpret it, we have a pretty broad criteria. It's not just based on ethnic diversity. It can be sexual diversity, disability diversity. We're trying to reach as many families that are traditionally not able to go to school, who have underutilized our educational system. If you look, I won't go in all of the bullet points, but these are for students who are going to go to an Oregon institution. So I was saying before, you can use the college savings plan for schools not only all over the country, but all over the world, as long as they're accredited. This scholarship is just for Oregon-based schools. So those can be community colleges, apprenticeships, trade schools, Oregon universities, but they are Oregon-based. We will start the application process again later this year when the school year starts. I think it's September 1st. I think that's when we open up. Might be October 1st. I should double check that. Oh, actually, we did November 1st. It's right there in front of me. Really good presentation, John. So it's for 2 recipients every year, $10,000 for their freshman year, and then for the next 3 years, for half-time to full-time enrollment, $5,000. So it's a really nice way to help pay for it. Again, it probably, I would encourage you to look at other financial aid opportunities, but hopefully it will help with whatever school you plan on going to in Oregon.
This is my favorite part.
Well, it's a really cool thing. This is a partnership we started a few years ago with Bottle Drop. I know you live in the metro area, you probably see the green or blue bags. I first became aware of Bottle Drop when I was at my son's elementary school, and we were raising money for a PTO, and we were using Bottle Drop bags. Those are blue bags because you can use blue bags for sort of organizational fundraising. And then we have the green bags, which are individual. And the cool thing is you can now tie your Oregon College Savings Plan account to your Bottle Drop account. So if you want to take that deposit money from whatever cans and bottles you've been recycling, you can now put a portion of that or all of that to a college savings plan account. I know it's really popular with families. I've heard about schools cleaning up parks and, going around their lunchroom areas after, eating and picking up all loose cans and stuff. So it's a really kind of neat opportunity for the students to get involved in their own fundraising by just helping recycle, for lack of a better term. So we just recently hit our $1 million mark. That's how many people have contributed to their college savings fund accounts using Bottle Drop. So certainly encourage you to look into that if you have an account. It's a really cool opportunity to help raise a little extra funds.
I love it as an auntie. I can just do it from where
There
I am.
you go.
Yeah.
So that's my contact information. One of the things I'll highlight on our 1-866-772-8464 number, that's a customer service line. And we have translators, not just for Spanish, but for multiple languages. So if you ever get to the point where you're on our website opening an account and you're confused or don't understand something, you can call that number. And again, have someone in your preferred language help you through that if that's something that you would like or need. again, to learn more about this, you can go to OregonCollegeSavings.com. It'll have everything I talked about and more about our program. But you should always feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions, especially about what I was talking about tonight. If you think about it later and like, oh, I meant to ask them that, feel free to reach out at any time. And if there aren't any other questions, I'm all done. So thank you all for your time and attention.
I don't see any questions yet. We'll give it a few minutes. This is my contact information. I am that woman who's been emailing you all month about this event. Email is the best way to get me. Again, my name is Jen Satellino. I work for the College Place, Oregon. We're a nonprofit. They pay me a salary, and then I get to work with anybody I choose. So, and I'm free of charge. And for those of you who grew up in the Portland metro area, you might remember that free is a very good price. The old Tom Peterson tagline. But John, thank you so much for joining us. This is always my favorite webinar of the year.
Well,
So,
thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. I don't see any more questions, and it is 7:01. So I'm going to say, folks, please feel free to hang up. I will send out a copy, a link tomorrow, so that if we went too fast, you can come right back in and go over and over and over and over again what it was exactly that we said. But thank you for joining us. Really, really happy. And I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Hey, thank you. Bye.